Releasing trauma from the body is a fundamental step in part of our awakening process. Typically, taking control of our thoughts and our mindset through meditation is just one aspect, but we do need to actually observe some of the emotions and the traumas that we have in order to release that energy from the body. So today, I'm Carl Mustafa, and I'm going to be talking about releasing trauma from the body in understanding how to gain awareness in our body, release the trauma that's there, and then fill it and replace that area with what we do want in our life. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on today's Divine Soul Awakening podcast. Hey, Jenny. Hey, Doc. Thanks for joining us. Mike's going to be a few minutes late, and Rachel is tied up with sick kids. So thanks, everyone, for being a part of this. So let's get right into this and talk about releasing trauma from the body. I have a belief that I've attained from my own observations and through my mentors with William Michael Forbes and many others, that we are not this body. We're not the mind. We're a soul that's much greater than this mind and body. There's a lot of scientific evidence that shows that we actually carry emotions from one lifetime to another, and that we carry a lot of these emotions from what we've had in our conditioning in our life. So something that when we were brought up during childhood, we have every time my parents said no, every time they said something good, every time they said something bad, every time I had a good experience with friends or bad experience, this gets stored into a memory bank. Anytime then we then go to have a new event or do something new, we tap into that memory bank of information of what's happened to us, and our ego decides whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. Typically, our ego is here to protect us. It says, I don't want you to be hurt. I want you to stay exactly how you are, without any judgment at all. I just want you to feel the way that you are right now. So I'm constantly feeling in low vibration. I'm feeling very angry at myself. My body's going to keep me that, or my ego's going to keep me in that way. In terms of my body is really just an animal. It has the limitations of any animal, and that is of a 5-year-old. Like any 5-year-old, it needs basic needs. It needs to eat, it needs to sleep, and when it becomes mature enough, it needs procreation. And of course, we need rest and nutrition in order to take care of the body. So that's the body. It's limited to a 5-year-old, and that's like any animal. Because we are an animal, we need to take care of the body. And many times a 5-year-old doesn't know what it needs. It thinks that it needs that it can eat rocks and dirt and it's going to be perfectly happy. And theoretically, as an energetic source, it could be that, but our parents said, no, you can't eat rocks and dirt. Okay. So then our body remembers all those events that says whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. As I get older, next time I think about rocks and dirt, I'm going to be remembering that emotion that's attached to it. I might not necessarily remember my parents saying, don't eat rocks and dirt, but I do remember the emotion that's attached to it. They're going to say, no, don't eat that. And that's going to leave something within me that the next time I see somebody else do that to another child. So let's see, we're at the park and we see another parent yell at their child and say, no, don't do that. That's going to result in an emotion in my body that I'm going to feel something. Now, the body is a feeling animal. It can only communicate in feelings. And that feeling is either going to be some sort of joy, happiness, excitement, something positive and in pleasure, or it's going to be in pain, anger, hate. It's going to be a low vibrational reaction. So this is our body talking to us. Just like a child or a baby or an animal that can't speak, it's going to exhibit a certain emotion. As a parent of an animal or a baby, we get to know what these emotions are. As an adult, we've never been taught on how to observe these emotions in our body. We've never taught how to understand how the body is communicating to us. What I've learned through this practice and through the mentors is that the body is going to communicate with pain or pleasure. Anytime I feel an emotion, so if I feel angry, or I feel judgment, or I feel any type of pain, that is my body communicating to me, and it's saying, I need attention. Just like a dog barking or a child crying, we want to turn our attention to it. Hey, how are you? What's going on? And they might not be able to communicate with us, but all we could do as a parent and deal with somebody that isn't unable to communicate is to stay present with it. And I'll say to my baby, or I'll say to the animal, like, I really understand what's going on with you, but I'm here with you. I love you. I'm not going to leave you, and I'm just going to stay with you until we figure out what's going on here. So I might be quiet. I might pet my child. I might pet my pet. And through that process, I become very still and quiet. And then I might start actually getting a bit of a gut feeling or something. Well, maybe my baby or my animal needs some food. Maybe it ate something that's given it upset. Maybe I need to give it something to soothe it. Maybe it needs its diaper changed. Maybe I have to put it to rest. We start thinking about these thoughts and emotions of the solutions of what we can do for our child. Well, the same thing is what we want to do for our body. That if our body begins to exhibit and say it has some pain, this is our body, our animal, communicating with us. So if we're not the body and we're not the mind and we're a soul that governs all of this, we need to be the parent from a higher self and not necessarily listen to what our mind or thinking mind or our ego is thinking, because the ego mind is only operating on a memory bank of what it has experienced in this lifetime. So we've talked about the body being an animal. If we talk about the mind, and our brain is really just a collection of everything, all of our experiences that we've had in this one lifetime. Any new event that happens to us, we tap into that memory bank of information that happened in this time. And our ego is going to say how we should feel. Could be a good feeling, could be a bad feeling. But the ego is only limited to the information based on this plane of this world. As a higher self, as a soul, we have the experience of the unknown, unlimited possibilities. And as we go beyond the body and mind, and we quiet our body, we quiet our mind, we start moving into things like our gut feeling and understanding and inclination of what we should do. And that is typically tapping into our heart or our soul. So an event happens and I feel hurt in my body, I feel pain, I feel anger, I feel guilt. This is our trigger and our opportunity to say our body is communicating to us. That feeling, the body communicates as a feeling, it's exhibiting something. So I'll tune my mind into the body, and I'll actually put my mind into the area that I feel it. And I'll just kind of pay attention. So where am I feeling this in my body? I'll move my attention there, and then I'll just be quiet and I'll just breathe in that area. As I breathe in that area, I become more aware and more present to that space and become still and quiet. So I'm listening to the body now. In that process, I then listen for an emotion. I try to understand through my gut feeling and my awareness, what is it trying to say? And I might actually hear, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm in pain, I need something. So I might not know what that is. So if this is an animal and I'm not the body and mind, then I will actually want to speak to it from a place of my awareness. And just like any animal, I want to say, I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm here with you. I'm not going to leave you. Like any child that's in distress, like any animal that's in distress that you are a parent of, all they want is you to be present. It's not always about what they want. Oftentimes, they just want to be acknowledged and heard. Although I'm not a parent, but this is through the observations that I've had with my body, and this is what I've received through other parents, understanding that this is how they've recognized with their own kids. Would you guys agree with that? That when the body's upset, or when your child is upset or needs attention, your animal, all they really need is attention.
Mm-hmm.
So they might not necessarily need toys or anything special, but they do need attention. And even when your child wants to be with you and you don't know what to do with your kid, really, oftentimes they just want to hang out with you, whether it's just running errands, whether it's just going out the door. So as our body exhibits a feeling of anger, hate, shame, pain, even pleasure, we want to turn into it and be present with it so that we reestablish our relationship. Because we've been taught that in order to satisfy our body, that we're going to use some sort of drug. We can use alcohol. Maybe we need to distract ourselves with any type of, like I said, drugs or alcohol or promiscuity, or just to go out to the gym and just run it out, or really distract ourselves instead of paying attention to what the body and mind needs. So now we have an expression. Our body is exhibiting a feeling. could be anything. We turn our mind to it, we bring our attention to it, and then we just be present and we listen to it. And then, because if we treat the body like a separate animal, we need to know, have you been fed? Do you have enough water? Have I grounded you? Have I given you enough exercise? Have I changed you? Have I washed you? Have you had enough sleep? Do you need some entertainment? Do you need to be with friends? We look at some of the basics of what the body needs. But oftentimes, what it really needs is you to be present, pay attention. So as you're staying present and you're breathing into that space in your body, you then give it love. I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm here. And you're going to talk to it. Whether you believe any of this or not, you're going to talk to it as if you mean it. Just like you could say to an animal, I think we've all done this, or at least I've done this, that we've experimented how we can actually talk to our animal, whether we say something positive or negative. And I could talk to an animal and say, you're a dumb fuck, aren't you? You're really stupid. And they're going to sit there and wag their tail because my energy isn't of hate. I'm actually giving them love, and it's not about the words. I'm still giving them love because the tone and the energy of my words, of the vibration of my words is positive. So they're going to wag their tail. But if I then say, I love you so much, I'm just going to squeeze the heck out of you because I love you. The dog is typically going to tuck their tail underneath because the energy and tone that goes along with the words that I'm using is low vibrational. It's not of love. So it's not about the words that you say. It's the energy and vibration that you give it. Because we are all energy. All of our bodies are energy. The environment is all energy. When we communicate to our bodies, we want to give it energy of something positive, of high vibration. So when we're paying attention to an emotion, to pain, to anger, to hate, to shame, we want to observe it in our bodies. We want to be present with it, and we want to acknowledge it and let it know that it's being heard. And by using positive energy. And it really is, I don't understand what's going on with you, but I'm here with you. I love you. I'm not going to go anywhere. And then I wait and I listen and I'm quiet. And then there might be a small shift that they might exhibit and say, I feel a little bit better. In that, we want to give it positive reinforcement and say, good, I'm glad you feel better. You deserve that. I'm so happy for you. And I'll share that with the body. Once I share that with the body, I'll then tune in and say, I'll just kind of feel the space. And typically from our gut feeling, we can tell if there's something a little bit heavy in the area. You know, this kind of feels a little bit dense. It's like watching a drama that could be a little bit heavier. You know it can feel heavy. Well, I'm going to tune into this area of my body, and I'm going to then, with my intention, I'm going to use my breath to attach myself onto the heaviness, and I'm going to draw it up my body, up my spine to the top of my head. I'm going to let the pressure build. I'm going to exhale it as if I'm going to exhale it out from my crown and out through my mouth, and I'm going to transmute it and give it into love and light. So if people aren't practicing this, the feeling of awareness, this might not make a lot of sense to you. So typically the first step of this is gaining awareness. And through our awareness, this is where we spend time in meditation, but not just any meditation. What we want to do in meditation is just become still and quiet. And in that stillness and quiet, when you start, every time you hear your mind talk to you, you hear your own self kind of speak. That's typically your ego. That's your mind talking. Oh, what have I got to do about the dishes? Oh, I haven't done that yet. Oh, I need to go do this task. I need to go run out and do this. What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to have for dinner? Those thoughts are our mind that have typically gained control because we haven't learned to gain control over it. So in that meditation, we want to become still. And when we hear that chatter, our mind saying, what are we going to do for dinner? We're going to say, we want to stop that voice right away and then go back into the stillness. This is us regaining control of our mind and body, at least of our mind. Then in our body, we might feel a need to itch. I feel a need to scratch. I want to open up my eyes. I'm going to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to sit here. I'm going to take a breath. And I'm just going to put my attention onto my breath. And as I put my attention onto my breath, I'm distracting the body and the mind. But if I want to scratch, I'm not going to scratch it because I'm going to teach the body that it's not time to scratch. I'm going to gain control of my body by not scratching, by not itching, by not rubbing my nose. I'm just going to let it happen. And eventually it will become still. So as we gain control of the body and the mind through spending time in awareness, we now become really sensitive. In our sensitivity, as we spend time and recognize the emotions in our body, we're now able to feel and sense everything that's happening within the body. We can find in the areas, to the point that we then can actually do things like breathe. We can breathe in and out from that space. It's not always about the lungs. I've worked with a lot of people that don't have practice with this, and they say, well, how am I supposed to breathe through my heart? How am I supposed to breathe in my elbow or shoulder? Well, if you put your intention into there and spend time there, you then gain some awareness. And then as you breathe, you should be able to feel some sensitivity. Finally, once we actually transmute some of these energies and emotions, we then want to replace that space that we've cleared out with something new. And that is what you do want in your life. So many of us, we're moving into, let's say, a 5D realm. What that really means is that as we become more sensitive and aware to our environment, that we're not the physical, we're not the body, we're not the mind. There's something more than what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. That there's energies beyond that. And that's typically our clairs, our clairvoyance, our clairaudience, our clairsentience, our clairalience, clairgustance. All of our different clairs gives us a knowing beyond the 5 physical senses. Spending time in the awareness heightens that. And that moves us into the all-knowing intelligence, or the unknown of unlimited possibilities. So right now we might think our life is pretty bleak, that I only have certain limitations, that we have pain in the body, that we don't have enough money coming in. But as we spend time in this energy, as we spend time removing these emotions, we then can actually create and manifest and say, this is what I do want in my life. This is how I want my body to feel. I want to feel happy and strong, with strong vitality. My nerves are running freely. I have no pain in my body. My body is happy and healthy environment. It's strong and limber and flexible. And as we start creating what the body wants, we can begin to manifest that. All this goes into quantum physics. Quantum physics says that we're all energy. Because all physical matters is all energy, broken down into atoms and protons and microatoms, that each one of these elements are an energetic source, that they've known that all these are actually space and energy, is nothingness, with a very small, minute piece of matter. Well, in that, because we're all energy, we can manipulate that, and that goes into the law of resonance. I'm going pretty deep and into a deep tangents, and I've hit a lot of different points, but ultimately it comes down to this. We're not the body. We're not the mind. We are something greater than this. By spending time in meditation, we're going to regain control of our body and mind. We're going to observe the emotions and feelings that are coming from our body and mind, this animal that can't speak or use words. And you're going to transmute and change the energy that's sitting in the mind and body into something else. And then we're going to move into creation. Fundamentally, that is the basics. It may sound complicated as I've explained it all, but it's actually very simple. Quieting your mind, paying attention to what's happening with you, and then feeling what you really want in your life. That is the fundamental basics. And really, every emotion, there's a lot of different ways to change emotions and transmute and somatic breath work and all these different things. But ultimately, this is our animal body. It just needs attention, and it needs a little bit of love. And if we raise the vibrations and start doing this on a consistent basis, eventually it's going to happen. If you think about if one of your kids or a teenager is quite unruly and you just don't know how to connect with them, well, all you can do is just spend time with them and be in their space until you get familiar with each other and regain your trust with them. Our bodies and our minds have gone haywire. It's the child and the teenager that hasn't had the supervision because we haven't known how. But now that we know how and we pay attention to it, we can begin to regain control, reestablish a relationship to a point that your body and mind become really happy for you, and they step aside, and you allow your soul and your higher self of pure love to dictate to your entire life. Whew, that was a lot. Anybody want to comment on this? You guys want to say something or pinpoint on this? Like, what is your I know both of you have spent a lot of time on this. Maybe if I start with the body, by spending time, have you had your own experiences in discovering that we are not the body and the mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my body used and my mind used to rule me. And I didn't have that understanding until I started doing some of this work, working with you, working with William, and connecting with this, with what you just described. And yes, it can seem overwhelming and there's a lot to it, but it is very simple. You know, for me, I think what helps me a lot to understand this when I'm tapping into those emotions and what's going on with me is I try to picture my ego, my body, my mind as a 5-year-old child. And when something hurts or I don't feel well or I'm having emotional distress going on, that's where if I make that connection as looking at that part of me as a 5-year-old child that's trying to get my attention and why is it trying to get my attention, um, I'm able to tap into it easier. And I was laughing a little bit with the itching and the scratching because when I first started doing classes in meditation and trying to get more serious about meditation, my body still even now will pull that. Okay, my nose itches or something on my back itches. While we were talking about this, I had a spot on my back that was itching, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to scratch you right now. It's not time for me to scratch you right now. So all of those little things that I learned, definitely have helped in being able to tap into things like the neuropathy in my feet that comes and goes for me. This is part of it. Part of it is emotional for me, and I know that. Part of this also has to do with past lifetimes too. But the way that I used to react to it was I would get angry and I would scold it, and I don't do that anymore. And when I tap into it and give it love that it needs, it subsides, it dissipates. So that to me is definitely speaking to what you've been talking about is I'm in control of my body. My body is not in control of me. And it's just simple programming that I grew up with.
Yeah. So if we think about a 5-year-old, what does a 5-year-old need? And a 5-year-old really needs a healthy environment.
Hmm.
It needs good food, good nutrition. We're not going to feed a 5-year-old beer. You're not going to give it whiskey and pizza every day. This is not how we're going to provide that 5-year-old. So if this body is a 5-year-old, I want to take care of this 5-year-old with a lot of clean, high vibrational water, with fruits and vegetables. I give it freshly squeezed juice every day, high vibrational nutrition. I go out to the sun. I make sure my body is getting exercise. I also want to be out there in ground. As a kid, the best thing I ever did was go out and just be running in the field, just being on the grass, rolling on the grass with everyone else. And it's such a joy to give that. As a child, I was free. I didn't have these conditionings that was built out over time. So if we think of this body as a 5-year-old, we got to go back to basics and begin to give it a healthy environment. And then when you start giving, I think we've all done this, we maybe gone on a bit of a bender, either with alcohol, drinking, with food, that we just did things that we knew wasn't right for us. Because as a gut feeling, we know that having that pizza, that greasy pizza, isn't always the best for us. But the other option is, well, I could have a big salad or I could have that greasy pizza. And we know in that moment, it's like, oh, I really should have the salad. But it's also, we're not saying to deprive yourself. I'm also saying that, yeah, go ahead and have that pizza if you want to have it, but also give it the good nutrition. So we don't just feed the baby, a 5-year-old, just ice cream. You make sure you give it a healthy dinner first before you have dessert. So it's okay to have the pizza. It's okay to have these things that might not be healthy for it, but just don't make that the primary source of the entire meal, because we got to take care of the child first and give it good nutrition, and also give it that pizza. Instead of having a whole pizza, give it a slice or two, and then have 50% of your plate with a salad or something healthier. Give it some vegetables, mix it up, green vegetables, give it lots of fruit. You want to mix it up and give it primarily a healthy diet. So first we want to do is change the environment of the body. Doc, you've got kids. What's your experience with this?
Teenagers are a different world, I can tell you. Sometimes they really don't want you to be there, but I think you're right. I mean, we found, and this is just our experience, that in the beginning we have all these concepts about how things should be, but quite often we found that as each subsequent child came along, we became more relaxed and tried to figure out what they wanted rather than what we wanted. But your experience of or your discussion on emotions, for example, is very apposite, because what we found personally, and also what we're able to show our kids, and they found it works, is that if we can get them to focus, for example, on a specific emotion, they can control the expression of that emotion by a number of techniques. One of them is grounding, but probably one of the most powerful techniques is love. And the kids these days are very much into things like anime and manga, and they understand chi ball, they understand energy, they understand all that sort of stuff. And for example, one or two of our kids have had issues to do with certain events which created anxiety, and they can actually feel the shift of this anxiety into a little ball, and they could shift it into the palm of their hands and either drop it on Gaia, or now they just give it love, and then they can feel better immediately. So these are very simple techniques which have a very profound effect on some of the most distressing moments in our lives, which, if we take time to understand and trying to explore these, it really works. The other thing which I've been increasingly aware, and this goes back to your quantum physics stuff, is that I could go on forever about this, but basically, our middle daughter is an astrophysician. She's a PhD now in astrophysics, more or less. She's just submitted a thesis, and so we've been having a discussion about stuff to do with subatomic particles and so on. And what she's sent me, and what I was able to find, was the formula for things like electrons, protons, neutrons, and quarks and the subatomic particles. And in all of these formulae, except for with one exception, which is the Higgs boson particle, all of these subatomic and atomic particles are based on a mathematical function which includes energy. So therefore, it links this concept where because we know we are consciousness, and that consciousness is an energy, therefore that consciousness and that energy can change into solid particles or subatomic particles, to atoms, to molecules, and to physical things. And therefore everything we see in our universe, because we are part of atomically part of the same universe, is all down to energy. And you can then understand how, for example, certain highly high vibration individuals can actually change matter. They can put their hands on a rock and make an impression on the rock. They can divert the course of water, all through consciousness. And if that's the case with the physical properties of an atom, and we are atoms as well, we can do the same thing with us. It's just trying to find those modalities that do it. And because that consciousness is energy, and if you know any physics, you'll know that a lot of energy is expressed as heat, which is basically vibrations in particles, and it all fits in. It just all fits in. It's just trying to understand those links, and then perhaps in due course we can then think about and talk about how you can actually make that happen. But the first thing is to be aware of it, which is what you're describing very elegantly in your previous discussion, which is just fabulous. Jenny, when you do your stuff with your sound bowls and your Reiki, as you know, I don't need to, you know far more about this. It's all about vibrations and energy.
That's right.
Surprise, surprise, And likewise with when folks are going through exceptionally difficult times, and I've seen this in my work in hospices and so on, it just sometimes is a change in a thought, which actually changes a totally disastrous situation to being some of the most profound experiences you can ever have. Again, I don't want to lionize the time, but I remember walking into somebody who was really very ill, extremely ill. I stopped all meds and clinically just going downhill. And I asked her, "How are you?" And she said, "I've never felt better in all my life," because she just let go. She just let go, and she knew her pain was in control. She'd forgotten about the diabetes. She wasn't in pain from a joint or liver disease. but she had just let go. And that one thing had changed her life from being a terribly distressing, burdensome series of personal illness events to being something very beautiful. And she was just having a ball. She really was having a blast. And so that thought can change everything. And that's what, if I could summarize, is what you were describing earlier on in a way from your perspective as well.
And letting go it takes a practice.
Yeah.
It really does. When we first start this is also called the dark night of the soul or shadow work. That when we first start observing these emotions in our body, like Lauren's saying right now, that she's going through a difficult time with her relationship, this is something that we can actually change the energy of, that how we're feeling. So she's saying she's feeling betrayed, alone, and hurt. So this is something to be validated. And what we're going to do right now is just experiment with that. Doc, you wanted to say something before we get into this?
Yeah, Lauren, thank you for sharing this. I can understand how difficult this is, but not completely. Apart from what we're going to be doing in a moment, I'm sort of presupposing what Carl's going to read on. Always remember that these emotions are trying to teach you something,
Right.
and trying to learn something, okay? And these emotions have come up for a reason, and we can see them as being painful episodes in our lives and go through a whole bunch of thought processes, including why, and why me, and why now, and all that sort of stuff. But perhaps you might want to just park this to one side and say, well, what is it that's making me feel betrayed? And then go through the 5 whys. Well, why is it that that's the case? And why is it that that's the case? Why is it that that's the case? And as you work your way down, you can possibly sometimes come to the true core of what is it that's actually being triggered, rather than the initial causal event, perhaps your relationship, that's actually the cause of this. The only reason I'm saying this is because actually when you go through what I call the 5 whys, and this is nothing I've created, it's from manufacturing theory, but nevertheless, these allow you to figure out why is it you're reacting in that particular way. And that partly allows you to address the underlying cause. And perhaps if I could presuppose, Con, what you're also going to be doing is to actually look at how you address the actual emotions in themselves and the feelings themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point. So we are going to move into talking about emotions now. And as Doc said, the emotions, they are typically energy that's trapped in the body. And this is what we want to release, what we consider trauma in the body. It could be a repeating pattern. It can be every time we go to our in-laws, we're being triggered, and there's a reason behind it. One of the methods is actually looking at things like the 5 why. That's a lot of Carl Jung type of shadow work, isn't it? That uses that goes in the why. But when we actually contemplate the why, I've gone beyond that myself, because the why is a need of the ego to understand. But when we go beyond the actually conscious trying to understand it, the why is actually a really good tool. There's also an efficient method by just being present with it and using a different method. Oftentimes I found when my body ends up trying to go through the why and I start asking it why, it doesn't need to know why, it just needs attention. It's like us trying to fix a problem and saying, well, is it this? Is it that? Is it this? When really it just needs attention. And by giving it attention and just giving it love ends up making this process much more efficient than actually just looking at the whys. Although the why is very, very good, but personally myself, I find it time consuming. For others, it's a very efficient tool. But we just need to know that there's more than one way to actually deal with trauma. And Doc brings up an excellent point that going through the 5 whys is beautiful. It's wonderful. So if we look at trauma, yeah, go ahead.
I guess if I could just very briefly summarize. So one technique is like having a painkiller or paracetamol. The beauty is it gets rid of the fever, but the problem is you don't know what the underlying cause of the fever is. And so it's just being aware that these are different approaches to addressing the fever or looking for the causes, or if they aren't, just giving it love, right, as you quite elegantly said. Yeah.
So what I do, instead of asking it why, and I'm actually jumping a little bit ahead, what I do first is be present with the emotions, giving it love and understanding. But that doesn't necessarily always get to the root of it. A lot of times it takes care of things. I find the emotions that we need to get to the root of it is repeating patterns. If things are always trigger me. So if every time somebody says something to me, or I hear somebody walk behind me and I start getting my back up because I think they're talking about me, there's a repeating pattern. When there's a repeating pattern, there's more of a deeper root cause. And in that case, I'll ask the question, who do you need love from? And by asking that question, it then gives me the root. It could be a group of people. It could be a community. It could be my parents. It could be my father. It could be my mother. As I then, in that moment, I will bring them into the conversation. So as I'm saying present, so let's say I have a pain in my heart because I'm thinking about some sort of emotion that I'm having a difficult time with my relationship. And when I think about that, if I feel it in my throat and my heart, so I'll put my attention in there, I'll breathe, and I'll say, I'm here, I love you, I'm not going anywhere, but I'm here now. And then I'll just sit and wait. And I'll also say, you're perfectly safe, no harm's going to come to you, we're just going to observe. So I create the space and give it that boundaries to know that it's in a safe space. And in there, as I ask it that question, and I continue to give it love, I'll listen to it and I'll listen to what the emotion is. And it might say, I'm feeling betrayed. I say, I completely understand. Yeah, betrayal is not a good way to feel, and I'm here for you. I'll never betray you. I'll always be with you, and I'll always love you. So we always counter the emotion by reinforcing it, saying, well, I'm always going to be here for you. I'm going to go with you. I'm never going to betray you. I promise you. I really mean that. And you say it like you believe it. As you say that, you're going to notice for the shifts to happen in the emotion. And you're looking for the tiny shifts. And in that, I might actually say, well, I don't believe you. Okay, it's okay. It's okay if you don't believe me. Now you got to prove it with action. And I won't leave that emotion. I promise you, I'm going to be here for you. I'm not going to betray you. I promise you, from this day forward, I might not have known in the past, but I do know now that I'm going to be with you and I'm never going to leave you. And in that, I might notice a bit of an energy shift. To that energy shift, I'm going to give it thanks and praise. I'm going to always reinforce it with positive confirmation. But maybe it's not enough. Maybe it needs something more than love. It needs something much more. And it's not going to need it from me. So I'll ask it, who do you need love from? Sometimes I'm going to hear it say, I need love from you, because it's asking for my attention. But I also might hear, I need love from my dad. I need love from my mom. I need it from my friends or this community that betrayed me. I need love. So I'll then bring that energy in, and I'll bring my father in, and I'll have him observe. Dad, observe. See, and as I bring his energy in, I'll have him observe my emotions, and I'll see how he feels and see how he reacts to it. It might be a good thing. He might not even acknowledge it. And I say, are you ready to give it love? A lot of times they say, yes, yeah, I'm ready to give it love. And then I'll let them hug it out and just work it out. You just hug. You just be with each other, and you be present with his energy, because it doesn't want to be present with me. It wants to be present with my father. But maybe my father is unable to. So then I got to look into my father, into that energy source, and I'll say, well, where are you feeling it? And as I feel my father observing it, he might feel it in the same area. He might feel it somewhere else. And I'll move into that area within the image of my father. And I'll ask him the same question. Well, who do you need love? Who do you need love from? And it might be from his father. It might be from his mother. It might be from something else. And I'll bring that entity in. And I'll keep bringing those entities in until one of them says, yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel guilty. I'm ready to give it love. And then back on each one. They're going to hug it out, and they're going to love. They're going to love. They're going to love. That is getting to the root of the problem. Because many times the root of our problem isn't even in this lifetime. It's generational. So Harvard did this an amazing study that they grabbed like a baby chick, and to this baby chick, they gave it trauma, and they put it through a maze. They triggered it in some sort of way, and they instilled trauma in this baby chick. That baby chick grew up into a chicken. It laid an egg. That chicken grew up, laid eggs, What they discovered was that from 4 generations, the trauma carries over. That from that initial chick that they instilled that trauma on, it carried on to one generation, to another generation, to another generation. 4 generations of this chick have this trauma that's buried in. This also means that any energy or effect that we have is not only in the lifetime, if we don't deal with it, it's going to be passed on to the next generation and 4 generations forward. When we get into quantum physics, we also know that all of our lifetimes, all of our personalities are happening at the same time. So if I heal one aspect of it, I'm not only healing 4 generations back and 4 generations forward, I'm healing all my timelines, all the dimensions, all the personalities. Now, this might be getting out a little bit out there, but this goes back to the quantum particles and the quantum physics that Doc was speaking about earlier. That because we're all energy and energy has no time, but energy can never be destroyed. It's always in motion. It's always been moving. So it's either going to be pushed on to another generation. It's going to be pushed on to other timelines, other personalities. It's something that we can actually change and observe. So by going through this process, we can actually change this energy and stop it, or actually change the different dimensions. Yeah, Doc. You're muted, brother.
We see this all around us, so we're not necessarily aware of this. But if you look at your plate of food that you like or you were brought up with, that's actually a historical ripple along your family line about how people cooked a certain meal. If you look at chicken and rice, for example, across the Mediterranean, there are many, many different variants of this dish, from Portugal all the way down to Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, but they're all roughly the same. So the food is an energy ripple in time about thought, about how you cook a particular dish. Language is the same, and if you look at the way the words are described and constructed in any language, you'll see that there are similarities across time and place. You only need to look at the word mother or mum, ma. That's a very common sort of vocal construct of a mother. But it goes even further to things like Peter or Petros, from the Latin and Greek word for stone. But actually you see that in Far Eastern languages, so patar is a word for a stone in our language. And so you see these ripples of energy again over time. And likewise with genetics and experience of trauma, it's relived again and again and again. And if a culture or society actively reinstigates or reinstills that trauma by memories of, oh, those bad people over the hill did this to us, therefore we've got to go and kill them back again in time to come, it just carries on again. Mm-hmm. And so you can see how these ripples of energy and thought occur within cultures, within families, communities, and thereby individuals. And part of it is releasing to let go. And equally so, the field of epigenetics shows that the environment affects the way genes are expressed. So that obesity is partly an expression of historical times of famine, where certain genes were turned on that enable people to store food if they needed to. And therefore you get subsequent generations of obesity within populations. And so you see this all the time. It's just, we don't often understand it from a quote spiritual context, but it is one and the same because it's all to do with thought. Over to you.
Yeah, I've also noticed it's as you gain awareness, as you spend time in awareness, and you become more sensitive to energy, it then carries out into all these different things. It carries out into the food that you eat, to a point that, I used to eat meat, but after doing a juice cleanse and cleansing my body, and even now, I have no aversion to people eating meat. But for my own self, if I think about it, there's something in me that says, no, I don't want this. I've become more aware. I used to use medical cannabis all the time to deal with the MS in my body. But there came a point that I just felt the energy and became really aware that this is interfering with me and it's not for my highest and greatest good. So I ended up dropping it, and it wasn't hard for me to drop this thing that I was semi-addicted to. I just let it go. And that's through the development of awareness. So I'm looking at Lauren's comment in here that she's saying that her relationship that she's got up, that he cheated with me with my first cousin. So this is something worth observing. So Lauren, let's, if you're willing, and anybody else that's willing, think about something that's happened to you recently, and just breathe. And just start by taking a big, deep breath. as we breathe, by taking a deep breath and holding our breath, we actually begin to gain control of our body. And just breathe. Take a few deep breaths. We'll become a little bit more still, become a little bit more quiet, and we regain control of the emotions that are flowing in our body. And then if I think about something negative that's happened or something bad that's happened that I consider bad, even your cousin, this person, your relationship cheating on you, notice where that shows up in your body. And if you allow me to connect into your own energy, as we gain awareness and sensitivity, we can feel others. And as I tune into you, I can feel it in my chest and throat. And I'm just going to move my attention into this area, my chest and throat, and I'm just going to breathe in this area as I become aware and become close to it. And I feel it. And I'll say to the body, it's okay, you're safe. Even though they cheated on you, it's not you. You're perfectly safe. And there's nothing wrong with you. And Lauren, there is nothing wrong with you. This isn't you. This is them. So I'm just going to breathe here for a moment. And I'm going to listen to the emotion that comes in here. If I listen to the emotion that I heal, I do feel betrayed. And I understand that you were betrayed. And I promise you there's nothing wrong with you. This wasn't anything that you did. This is something that they did, that they had. And now I'm going to ask this area, like, who do you need love from? Well, I kind of feel that I need love from myself first. To know that I'm worthy and I'm of value. That even though this person cheated on me, that's not me, because that's them. And it's not that I wasn't good enough. It's that their vibrations, my vibrations, was too good for them, and their vibrations were too low. That because I raised my vibrations and I became a better person, we vibrated out of love. And funny enough, I just posted something on my Facebook page, a video that talks exactly about this. So as I keep my attention in here, I'd say, even though they left you, you are good enough and you are wonderful and I love you. And I can kind of feel this area getting a little bit better. Like the vibrations raise a bit. And it's like, yeah, that's good. I'm really proud of you. Good. I'm glad you feel that way. And now I still notice there's a bunch of heaviness around there. So I'm going to attach my intention onto all the heaviness and the denseness. And I'm going to say, I'm going to help you relieve some of the denseness here. So attach your attention onto that area. And then by using your breath, as if you're a vacuum, begin to vacuum it up your body, up your spine, draw it up to the crown of your head, and keep on vacuuming it all up to your crown, allowing the pressure to build. And when you're ready, exhale it out for your crown as you exhale it out for your mouth, transmuting it into love and light for the highest and greatest good. I release you. I'm letting you go. You can cheat on me. I'm letting you go. And as I feel that breath and that release, I say, thank you. Thank you for that release, because I feel better. Thank you. And I'm going to do it again. I attach my intention onto it. I want to get all that residual denseness in there and draw my breath up, doing the exact same thing up to my crown, allowing the pressure to build, and exhale it. I'm going to say you're safe. There's nothing wrong with you. And as I tune into this energy, it's who else do you need love from? And I feel your boyfriend stepping in. And I bring him into the picture and I ask him to observe what's happening here. And as I tune into their energy, the why is actually revealed. And it's because they felt that they needed something, that they needed to be validated in their own selves, that they're still virile, that they're still able to get a mate. Although they love you and they care for you, this is something within their own mental ego that they needed to satisfy. This really goes back into the animal instinct. If the body is an animal, the body, and it needs to procreate, it needs to conquer, it needs to have these things. There's a combination of the body and the ego here. And as I see that, it's like, okay, that gives me a piece of understanding. It's like, oh yeah, so it's not me, it's you. This is part of your ego. This is part of your animal. This part of it might be a little bit uncontrollable. And now that I see that, and I tune back into this area of my body, because it understands that, I begin to have a little bit of compassion and understanding. It's like, oh, it's not me. It is you. You're an idiot. You tuned in, or you gave in to your animal instincts, and you weren't able to control it. But I understand that now. And as I tune to that, I'll kind of ask, are you ready to give it love? Are you able to give me love now? I can feel this aspect of him needs healing. So I'm going to tune in, like, who do you need healing from? And I feel his father stepping in. And I say, I feel his father stepping in. What I see, his father did the same thing. His father cheated. And his father had this premarital excess. So I can feel that. So now that I see the father, I'll tune into him. It's like, Dad, like, are you ready to give him love? No, he's not. Dad, who do you need love from? I feel his mother stepping in, have the mother pop in. Mom, how do you feel about this? Because she feels guilty because she never spoke her truth. So because she never spoke her truth, it almost gave him allowance, the father, an allowance to do this. So speak your truth. And how do you want to deal with this, Mom? Are you ready to give it love? She's ready to give it love. So now I'm going to allow the mother and the father to embrace and work it out. And I just let them hug it out. And then once I find them separate, I now feel the father's energy. Dad, are you ready to give your son love? Yes. Now those two hug. And they're working it out. And I can feel them crying. I can feel them sobbing. And I wait for them to separate. They separate. Are you ready to give Lauren love? I kind of feel a no. So then now there's more healing aspect that needs to be done here. So this is typically, and we're going to keep going and ask him that energy as well. Who else do you need love from? So this isn't only about you. Now you're dealing with another lifetime that because this person came into your life, you're energetically and chemically connected, that your healing would actually heal his timeline. And part of our aspect of coming into this world is to have these experiences and make us a better soul, but also heal the world and transmute the low vibrational energy on the world. So it's not always about what's happening to us or around us. There's also a greater aspect to this. I'm just going to see some of your comments here. And Lauren says, yeah, I felt I was ascending, then this happened and I got off track. You're an ACM student, so that's what's ACIM again? I know it's a
course in
A Course in Miracles, which is an amazing course.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you see what happened here? You've been raising your vibrations. As you raise your vibrations, your partner moved into fear because you're changing. And because you can see you're changing, he's like, I don't know what to do. I can't, she's going to leave me. Something's going to happen here. She's becoming too high vibe. He might not be able to feel it or recognize it, but his energy and vibration noticed yours. So he might start fights with you. But in this case, he ended up going into another relationship because he's looking for something else to satisfy this, to know that there's some normalcy. So he ended up connecting with somebody at his vibration. Now the greatest thing happens. Your vibration is raised. You two are no longer in the sea. You've moved out of his league. Really, you've moved out of his vibrational field. That he chose to move away from you. You didn't have to do anything. He left you. So now what you need to do is stay in the vibration of love. This isn't about what happened to you. This is a good thing because now you've just gotten rid of 250 pounds of dead weight. And what can you put in that? Who do you want that love to be? What do you want in your partner? What does your love life look like? Somebody that loves you, understands you, that's with you, that maybe does the ACIM with you. Now you can move into creation and replace that. The good thing is, thank you for moving out of my space, because now I'm going to bring in something really good. So what's going to happen for you? You're going to find that partner that loves you and cares for you, and every day is just going to fawn over you and love you and hug you and kiss you, because you are now in a vibrational resonance of who you are now. And this is what this work is. All this crappy stuff that happens to us during this process, you can call it a dark night of the soul. You can call it emotional release work. It can be anything that's trauma release. Whatever label you want on it, you are changing your energy and you're making room. This is all the shadow work that we're doing. It's not about the label. It's about observing your emotions, transmuting it, not even knowing the why, but in the observing of the people and the energy and the aspects that come along with it, we gain the understanding. So now when you think about your boyfriend leaving you for your cousin, the energy is just, fuck, thank you. Thank you for moving out of my life to make room for something more that's going to happen for me, something even better. Now you're going to really get what you want. And this is what it's all about. So now this triggering event of all the past boyfriends that might have cheated on you or left you or moved out of your life, we now have an energy that says, oh yeah, I feel good about that. Yeah, that sucker. Yeah, I just became way too good for him and he left. I vibed him out of my space. I didn't have to kick him out. I didn't have to have the awkward conversation. I just stayed in my vibration of love, and the universe and everything else did the work for me. Fuck, what a gift. How beautiful and wonderful that is. I'm so happy for you, Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
Notice the energy and vibration that we have now. There we go. And now Lauren feels good too.
Yeah.
This is what releasing trauma from the body really is. Raising your vibrations. As you've raised your vibrations, we've moved that. Notice the feeling. So notice the sensations that you have in your body. How do you feel? How are the vibrations? Do you feel the vibrations? Doc talk about the speeding up of vibrations ends up being heat. Do you feel those vibrations? The sensitivity, the awareness of your body. There's like a tingling. There's an energy. You've just raised your vibrations even more because you've gotten rid of low vibrations that was sitting in your body, not only in your timeline, in your boyfriend's timeline, in his father's timeline, in his mother's timeline. You've healed 4 generations of their family. You've healed the generations in your own life, and you've made yourself that you are no longer being triggered by this, that you're going to heal all your future relationships as well. Yes, girl.
Yes. Yes.
And I know these are happy tears. Yes. Thank you for participating with that, Lauren. Yeah, Doc.
2 things. I've got about 10 kilograms of dead weight to shift. We'll talk about that afterwards. But I have to say, Khan, and to everybody listening, that was a masterclass. Absolutely brilliant. And thank you so much for talking us through that. It was just wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And I just want to share too, Con, that the reason I'm so, and to Lauren too, I don't want her to think that I'm smiling in all this emotion that she just went through, but I'm only smiling because I went through this too, exactly what you were talking about, and have realized this release that happens. So when I see people that come in and they have the courage to tell us what's going on in their life and share it with us, we can hold space for you. And that was just beautiful. And I hope you see the beautiful light that is in you, Lauren, and continue to let it shine and not let somebody else with a lower vibration bring you down to them, because that's not why we're here. That's not why we're here.
So let's wrap this up. What you just went through, I mean, we're not even in the same space, but notice that we were able to work with energy, with using a certain words and vibration sensations. This is the gift of meditation. When you spend time in silence, we end up developing awareness. The awareness that the 3 of us showed you right now, that all of us were able to tune into your energy because you gave us permission.
Yeah.
And as you asked your question, you gave us permission into your space. And because we have a heightened sense of awareness and feeling, and most of us are like this, most of this has the label of empath, but we feel a lot of pain and trauma in people. Well, once you begin to observe and transmute this emotion and realize it's not me, just like your boyfriend that negativity wasn't on you, this is what all of us empaths are feeling. This is what awakening is, that we feel sensitivity of the world, of people around us. As we observe the emotions within us and we transmute it, we end up feeling happier and happier and happier. In that happiness, we become even more sensitive and aware. In that heightened awareness, we become happier. As I release the trauma in my body, I end up being really nice to people because I see you, and just as Jenny saw you, she's smiling because we know where you're at, and you are not alone. You're loved. So that feeling that we're giving to you is just love. So as we release the emotions and we become kinder to ourselves and we become happier, we become just a better race of people, that we start being kinder to everyone around the world. And we begin to understand that everyone in the world is an animal body, is an ego teenager, and a soul that governs it, that we've just seemed to be disconnected from that body and mind. And ultimately, every single one of us is love. Every single one of us is a loving soul, because you are love. We are love. Collectively, we are one. And as an energy source, we are all connected with each other. So this is what the gift of what this work does. Now, I can say this by tuning into your energy individually. I was able to guide certain words and tune into the different lifetimes or the different aspects. This is what we typically do, what I'll do in a one-on-one emotional release. So if anyone wants to experience this, consider booking a session with me on connight.com, and you can have an emotional release. But outside of that, come next week, I'm going to host a free group emotional release meditation to release suppressed emotions. And this is going to be, let me just put that back up here.
Sorry.
This is, put it to the top, there we go. This is going to be, I'm going to host this is going to be on Thursday, September 28th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on two places. We're going to put it on the private Facebook group, Intuitive Soul Rising, which is Rachel's group, who isn't here today. She's taking care of her kids. For those that don't want to join a community in a private Facebook group, you can also come to my business page at connight99/events, and you'll see there, and you can register and sign up there. You can also go to my YouTube page, get a bit of information, or just go to connight.com and consider signing up for a one-on-one. This is where we're moving to. So I hope you'll consider joining us. You can look for the page, and it's going to look like this: free at last, that guided meditation, and you can join us on that event. I hope you do, guys. Did you want to say anything before we move into the outro here,
Jenny?
We do have one more comment, if we have a quick moment here.
Sure.
Jacqueline said she would love to know what I can do to love myself and not let others bring me down through their perceptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely the process, Jacqueline. So let me just tune into your energy, if I can have your permission. What can I do to love myself and not let others bring me down through their perceptions? Yeah. Okay. So I'm feeling a lot of conditioning from when you're a child, past relationships, past life stuff. So it's going to be a similar process that we've just did with Lauren, that we're going to observe that emotion. So notice where that shows up in your body. Feel that. And as you tune into that, we want to go through a similar process of seeing who comes in. So let me just tune in quickly for you. I can feel a lot of parental stuff, even relationships, of how they spoke to you. So notice what's happening here, that based on the conditioning of what's happened to us growing up and in our life, from our parents, our family, our friends, our relationships, they make us feel a certain way. Because we've been burned by one of these events in the past, we became very, very much aware of these things. And this is the definition of an empath. We all have gone through some pretty good trauma. and we just become really sensitive, that we get on high alert. So now you're on high alert when people start making you let you down, and they make you feel this way through their perceptions. But ultimately, it's not their perceptions. You're feeling something that they're triggering within you that makes you feel a certain way. This isn't them. Now, it might be them, but also here's a gift that the universe is telling to us, that the soul wants to cleanse out of your body. So these events kind of come up in our lifetime for us to observe it. But we've been taught never to observe it. We've been taught to suppress it, either with drugs, alcohol, something else, just to distract ourselves completely, to sit there and cry and have a pity party. And that's all okay, but it doesn't deal with the problem. Anytime that we cry and release, all we're just doing is releasing the pressure, but we're not dealing with the root. But as we go through the process that we just did, we can then look at the emotions and transmute it so that it doesn't come again. So that when you think about somebody doing this to you, we have an understanding, we have compassion, and you end up feeling love from it all. That's what the overall work of this does. So I encourage people to consider joining us in next Thursday on the Free at Last group meditation, but even more so, consider booking a one-on-one session with me, and I can guide you through this process. The alternative is you can ask about our Enlightened Mastery community, where we actually go through the practice of this 3 times a week. I hold a live meditation for people where we go through the practice of developing awareness, releasing emotions, and then moving into creation. Saturdays is all about creation. We bring in what we do want in our life. And this is the ongoing process. Become more aware, release the emotions, and then create and replace that energy with what you do want. And that's a process. Now that's application based. It's very private. I'm very careful about who is allowed into that space. And there's a pretty heavy cost to it, but it is worth it for those that are serious and need the community to have an active space to relieve and heal. So I hope that that helps you all.
If I could add,
Yeah, brother.
everybody has these moments where there's like a culmination of past issues that seems to be overwhelming you. Once you get through and beyond these and you look back, you realize that this was just yet another part of your life where you've overcome an adversity and come out stronger. It just is at the time when you're in the middle of it, it just seems totally overwhelming. But you've been doing this ever since you were born, from the time you tried to eat your first mouthful and got it in your ear, the time when you fell over and had to stand up and get up and do it again, to when you went to school and you get scared about the first day at school. It's just another experience. And once you get through it, it's totally liberating. And there are more and more and more that you'll find that it's made you far stronger. And so, Jacqueline, Lauren, we all wish you very, very well, and we know it's going to be fine. Okay? See you on the other side. Okay, back to you, Carl.
Beautiful. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate that. Well, our next show is October 4th, and that is going to be avoiding the traps of spiritual labels, and that's going to be hosted by Mike Borg. So in that episode, when we talk about certain energy portals coming in, we now have the new moon portal, the blue moon portal, we have ascension, we have all the different changes in the universe. Well, we end up putting labels onto them, and we end up feeling the negative effects that come along with it, and we take it on as our own. So that's what we're going to be talking about in our next show, and that is going to be hosted by Mike. For anyone that wants to book a one-on-one session, consider going to my website at connight.com, where I can walk you through a one-on-one. You can find some of our other Patreon events and other group events where we get together and have discussions like this, because there's a lot of depth that comes around all these topics, but it's great to have a community of people that are just like us, that we're going through this. That's a safe space for us to talk. Jenny that you see on the screen here is an amazing energy healer. Like you noticed, all of us were all able to tune in with you remotely. Jenny not only does Reiki, she's a master Reiki, not only a practitioner, but also a teacher. And she also does a lot of sound healing as well. So consider booking a session with Reiki, with Jenny, and reaching out to her. She's amazing. I actually was visiting her personally a couple of weeks ago, and I had a one-on-one session with her. Amazing, just amazing. Doc here, he channels for the undead. So he has this amazing ability that when people are going through a bereavement, he is connecting your family, being able to bring in messages and be able to channel the person coming through and help you with the comforting and understanding of them passing through. He has helped so many people. Outside, he's been doing this for his entire career, working in the medical field, specifically in this area, in palliative care. He is spiritual awakenings come through, and he's helping people on the spiritual sense now to transmute the effects of having a loved one passed on. So I really hope that you help people through, connect that with Doc, and he can guide you through meditations to remove fear, anxiety, and pain and anger. Rachel isn't here today. She is busy with her kids, but she has this amazing Patreon group that goes into very deep spiritual topics. The spiritual growth that's happening with Rachel and the channeling that she does, it really is next level. I really encourage people to go check out Rachel on her Patreon group where she does live work. And of course, finally is Mike Borg, who's going to be hosting next show on October 4th. Mike is with Energy Healing. He's been doing this for over two decades in teaching people, mentoring. He has one-on-one courses, group courses, and of course, distance work and energy healing. And he's out in the East Coast in Canada. So I hope you'll all consider joining us. All of our contacts are in the description. If anyone wants to know a little bit more about this type of work, we're going to add on 2 videos to the end here. One is a group emotional release that's on my YouTube channel. I did this some time ago, and that is up. We're going to add that to the end screen. And the other is going to be from Mike, and that's going to be understanding your boundaries of the physical body, and we'll link that to the end as well. So that's it for another Divine Soul Awakening. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. Please consider visiting any one of us for a one-on-one session, and we'll see you on October 4th, everyone. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful week. Love you.